After about a month of using the Fossil Gen 5 Carlyle HR smartwatch, is it the best Wear OS smartwatch out there? To put it simply, yes. I'm Matthew with Cool Stuff, and I'm going to show you why the Fossil Gen 5 Carlyle HR is the best Wear OS smartwatch to date. To start off with, when referring to the Fossil Gen 5 Carlyle HR, I'll simply say the Carlyle or Gen 5 because Gen 5 Carlyle HR is kind of a mouthful. So let's begin with the quick specs. This smartwatch is running the somewhat newer Snapdragon Wear 3100 with 1GB of RAM and 8GB of internal storage. The case is a 44mm case, kind of big for smaller wrists, but at least it's not like the 46mm from the Galaxy Watch. This has a nice and bright AMOLED screen for viewing in direct sunlight, and it has a speaker and mic for taking calls and uses a 22mm swappable watch bands for customization. You can get them at the Fossil store or anywhere that sells 22mm watch bands. It also has sensors for heart rate along with untethered GPS and NFC for payments, though there isn't an LTE model. On to the review. The screen is bright and beautiful, and I love how the screen looks. Given the smaller screen on smartwatches, you need to be able to see your content clearly indoors and out, and this screen definitely delivers. When you just have your watch on your wrist, by your side it has the always on display, which shows just the essential needs like the time. This does drain the battery life slightly with the always on display on, but in my testing it hasn't been a significant amount of drain and an issue. When I bring my watch up to look at it, it brightens the screen based on the environment and shows what I need it. I will say sometimes the screen doesn't always turn on as if it didn't register that I brought it up, but that's just a minor detail. The next is the rotating crown. I love this feature. Fossil has had it for years, and I believe that more smartwatch companies should do this. Instead of blocking the small screen with your fingers by swiping up and down while reading notifications, you can just simply turn the rotating crown up and down like you would on a computer mouse. It works almost on all apps, however there have been a couple that it doesn't work. I've always enjoyed it since I got the Fossil Gen 3 several years ago. Samsung has something similar, but it's a rotating bezel, or in the case of the Watch Active 2, a digital rotating bezel. Again, I wish other companies would do this for the Android side of things. Next is the size. The watch only comes in one size, a 44mm case. Even the more female-oriented Julianna comes in just the 44mm case. I personally like larger watches on my wrist, a 44 to 46mm, but others may want something smaller. If Fossil offered two sizes like a 44 and a 42mm option, or maybe even a 40mm option, I feel like it would attract more of the smaller wrist crowd, like they did with the Fossil Sport, where they had a 41 and a 43mm option. I personally like the size of the 44mm case, but again, that is my personal preference. Next, the watch bands. I like that Fossil has swappable watch bands. I'm someone who likes to switch watch bands based on my mood or my outfit. The Carlyle and Julianna use 22mm watch bands. These are of course swappable with any 22mm watch bands, so whether you're working out with the silicone band or you're out on the town with a leather or a metal band, you'll always be able to match your outfit and occasion instead of buying multiple watches. I look for watches that use 22mm bands so that way I can just go and switch out my bands from watch to watch. So instead of going out and buying different watches to match your outfits, which could get very, very expensive, you can just have several different bands to suit your style. Next, let's talk about the internals. The RAM paired with the Snapdragon 3100 chipset. This watch is very smooth. I don't think I've had a stutter in performance since using the Carlyle. With most watches, they tend to have 512 megabytes or fewer of RAM. With the extra 488 megabytes of RAM, it allows the Carlyle and Julianna to run very smoothly on the 3100 chipset. There are not many watches using the Snapdragon 3100 chip, let alone coupling it with a full gigabyte of RAM. If you want similar specs, there's the almost $1,000 Mont Blanc Summit 2. That watch looks amazing, but for almost $700 cheaper, you can get the same internals and a more friendly price tag. The Fossil Sport smartwatch also runs the Snapdragon Wear 3100, but it only has 512 megabytes of RAM, and it shows. There are some stutters while running through the interface that the extra 488 megabytes helps to smooth out. However, if you're more sports focused, the Fossil Sport smartwatch is a great smartwatch. I'll place links to it along with the Mont Blanc Summit 2 down in the video description below. So next, let's talk about the speakers. Fossil has not just a mic for listening to the wake word of, but now has a speaker for taking and listening to phone calls. The speaker isn't the best, but when it comes to a smartwatch, it's pretty decent. I would not recommend listening to music on this watch, but hearing people's voice is pretty clear when it comes to taking calls. Also, just recently, with a software update, the Gen 5 can now take calls not just on Android phones, but also on iPhones, which will bring some of the Apple iPhone crowd over to Fossil if they either A, don't want to spend a ton of money for an Apple Watch Series 5 or an older Series 4, or B, they want a smartwatch that looks like a watch and not the Apple Watch. Finally, that brings us to the looks. This smartwatch looks great. It's not going to scream, "Look at me, I'm a smartwatch," but then again, who wants that? I love a smartwatch that looks like a watch rather than a piece of technology on my wrist. When coupling with a suit, it looks like it belongs. No one would suspect that you're wearing a smartwatch, which, in my opinion, is how a smartwatch should be. So, I will say Wear OS, while it has gotten better, it still is not the best watch interface out there. Tizen and Apple have a leg up, but Wear OS is getting there. Slowly. The screen could be a little brighter, but overall, it is fine. Also, I would say that the screen being almost at the same level as the bezel, you might want to get a screen protector for it to prevent any possible scratches. I don't have that issue with the Galaxy Watch because of the rotating bezel, but my Gen 4 Q Explorer's got a scratch on the screen without the screen protector, so just to be on the safe side, I'd pick up a screen protector. I'll place a link to a screen protector I use for my Gen 5 from Amazon down in the video description below. The only other issue is that the watch doesn't always register when I tilt or raise to wake, which I have turned on in the settings. And sometimes when I touch the screen to wake it, it still doesn't wake, but that could be a minor software issue, so we'll have to see. Overall, this smartwatch is, in my opinion, at $295, the best smartwatch I've owned. It's not massively large, at least for me, like others out there, and it runs super smoothly. It does what I want it to do, such as track heart rate, using untethered GPS and NFC for payments without going completely overboard to where it sacrifices functionality and practicality. It looks like a nice timepiece instead of a computer, and it works when I need it to. Thanks for watching. This has been my Fossil Gen 5 Carlyle HR review. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that bell icon to be notified when I post another video. I try to post a video every other week, but sometimes that changes. And so, until then, peace.